If you ask most parents of teenagers or 20-somethings, they will tell you when they talk to their kids about sex, it's usually a fairly brief conversation. Most of our children are not all that comfortable talking to their elders about their sex lives. However, a new study suggests today's teens and 20s are waiting longer to have sexual relations. It is my pleasure to welcome Dr. David McKenzie back to Studio 4 to tell us more. Nice to see you again.
Always good to be here.
As you know, my eyebrows are raising a bit when I say, really? Modern teens not having as much sex? Really? 20-somethings not having as much sex?
Well, it's interesting. In a recent study done in 2002, 22% claimed to be virgins between 15 and 24-year-olds. Okay. In 2008, 28% claimed to be virgins. So there seems to be this conservative trend. But I think a lot has to do with the HIV crisis, the AIDS crisis of the early 80s.
Sure, STDs.
That's right. In this recent study by two sociologists, whose names sometimes I forget and can't pronounce, but they found that since the sexual revolution on the whole, women are less happy sexually. And they seem to find that there's a strong correlation between fewer sexual partners and happiness. And the more sexual partners one had, the more unhappy they were, especially amongst women.
That makes sense to me because women like connection.
They like stability.
Stability. We want somebody to love us.
Yeah.
Not just have sex with us.
Yes, well.
Isn't that how it works, doctor?
Well, it doesn't. But they found in a recent genome study done with, I believe, 30,000 people over a long period of time, that in actuality, women are as promiscuous as males are.
I understand that. And women can have friends with benefits.
Sure.
And just have sex. But don't you think ultimately women... Maybe ultimately men and women.
Both men and women want the same thing. They want loyalty. In fact, 77% of men think of a woman in terms of a wife. They're not just thinking of a woman in terms of a one-night stand.
So are you saying a male would say to you, the best sex I've ever had is with my committed partner?
No, I would never. I wouldn't hear that from men or women. Sometimes the best sex is not with their partner. But it would seem to say in this study that monogamy seems to be on the side of people having more fulfilling, satisfying sexual relationships.
Sure.
One of the interesting things that's come up is that the dating has changed quite a bit. And I think we may have talked about this in an earlier broadcast, that whereas in our generation, you'd hook up, you'd have a boyfriend, a girlfriend. Now it's called hooking up and you join a group. And out of that group, you'll find a sexual partner.
Yeah, the gang hangs together. And there's not as much jealousy, I don't think.
Yeah.
Maybe there is.
It works more for men than it does for girls because girls want a more committed relationship. You can only have a girlfriend for so long who will put up with no commitment and wanting to play the field. She wants a partner.
Yes.
So, but it's interesting, there seems to be a conservative trend, but just remember there's a difference between pre-ceremonial sex in which a couple is already headed towards the marriage altar and they're simply having sex before the ceremony, then casual or promiscuous sex, and then sex which is crazy. You do something stupid, you don't think about it.
And when you define sexual relations, does it necessarily mean intercourse? It could just be
Well, talk to Bill Clinton. Bill Clinton should know about this.
But anything that makes you happy. Because, when teenagers say something like, I'm not having sexual relations, well, Bill Clinton said he wasn't either.
Okay.
So,
and I've got property for you in Florida.
Exactly.
Anyways.
But if you know what I mean, to me, that's kind of intimate, oral sex.
Of course it is. Any kind of sexual encounter, whether it be, it doesn't even have to be genital play. It can still be very sexual and passionate.
Of course. Sometimes more passionate than if there is the physical act.
Exactly.
Is that true? Do you believe in that, a mental affair?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, you get couples falling in love online. They've never met each other. Then when they meet each other, the sparks fly. The relationship really only goes when they actually are in each other's presence.
And sometimes I've talked to some friends who say they had this fabulous relationship, a mental relationship with another, and then they had a sexual relationship and it ruined the relationship.
Yeah.
What's that about?
Well, it's interesting, just because you have sex doesn't mean you're intimate. And intimacy requires a real openness and vulnerability.
And trust.
And trust. So you'll have people who will have this deep emotional relationship online or through texting or whatever, but then when they're in each other's space, then the real you comes out. And that's where intimacy really develops.
Okay, well, so what do you make of the couple that they have hot sex, but they don't really get each other? They're not too interested in one another. They,
it
don't
happens
do the crossword together or anything like that. But they have the great sex life, but not much else.
You mean it's a long-term relationship we're talking about?
Long-term relationship, have hot sex.
I don't
you
see
don't think
many.
that happens much?
I don't think there are many long-term relationships that last just on hot sex.
Okay.
Hot sex tends to die after a while. And I mean, it's wonderful to have. It comes from time to time. It's always good in the first 6 months of any relationship. But there has to be more to a relationship than just hot sex.
I was reading an article in the Sun last week, I think it was, about vitamin S, that we should take more vitamin S. I assume that means vitamin sex, because we'll live longer, you look 10 years younger, your blood pressure goes down.
Less depression.
All of the above, less depression.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Well,
better than vitamin D? Don't know. Let's take a break.
Okay.
When we come back, we'll talk about that,
Okay.
about how sex can make us look younger.
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
I
Dr. David McKenzie, our guest. We'll return.